Hi everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOC Reader, and welcome welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my Bloodmarked review, or why I will no longer be reading the Legendborn Cycle Series. So, I didn't go into Bloodmarked with high expectations. That I can admit, I've admitted it before. So I did have some issues with Legendborn when I initially read it. I came off of a really dense read of Master of Poisons. Master of Poisons also follows a teenage girl, but it's an adult fantasy, and that author, just by design, she has a very dense style of writing. So coming off to Bloodmarked, it was a much lighter story in comparison, even though Bloodmarked also has a lot of dense world building, and that can be very convoluted at times and confusing. It was not as confusing as that, so already that familiarity and easiness made it appeal to me. But I did have some problems throughout while reading. I am kind of struggling with the books, like the fantasies that are very racism heavy, especially once you read multiple in a row, because they all have very similar themes. So I did also like the Blood Trials, but I had some issues with that one too, which are very spoiler, so I will discuss in a spoiler discussion with people who actually read it or don't mind spoilers. But what I had a problem with here is that Bree had no real connection to the black community. We're watching her go through all this racism at the school, but there's nobody there to support her and give her that support system. And we're even though grief is a big factor in the story and it is her main driver, it didn't feel well balanced. So I thought some of the issues that I had with Legendborn would kind of be fixed in Bloodmarked. And also, in the past 2 years, the fandom has grown a lot larger as this book has gotten read by more people and gotten support. For many people, this is their first black fantasy by a black author. My problem is that a lot of the more vocal stans will constantly attack black women who have a different opinion from them. You are allowed to disagree with how people are reading you are allowed to disagree with their opinion about their favorite story. What you are not allowed to do is call a black woman brain dead because she said that the book is appealing to the white gaze. I've definitely seen those comments and it's disgusting. So if a lot of black women are saying it, there's probably a kernel of truth. Plus, I have a lot of author friends who are currently publishing books. Some of them feel like a type of way because they are not getting any attention. Legendborn has a big stan base. They don't really branch out and give the same energy to other black fantasies that are being released. A lot of authors are feeling pressure, or they're feeling like their book is inferior because it does not have a bunch of white characters in it. Some people are feeling pressure to write something similar. I have a friend who is currently going through edits right now for her book, and basically her publisher wants her to remove all the little traces of blackness from it to make it more comfortable for white readers, which includes vernacular and slang that we obviously use and recognize. They wanted her to explain in detail what DMV means. Really? And they also wanted her to basically remove the black boys and men out of the book, which was very unfair, because there was nobody for them to identify with. I have a friend who is writing an adult fantasy, and people were gravitating towards the white villain versus the actual love interest for her book. So those are struggles that real black women are going through when we talk about fantasy. So that is part of the reason why we are having discussions about these stories that get attention, that feel more like they are for the white reader than the black one. But aside from that, I ended up getting an arc, which I passed along to Ray. I ended up getting the audiobook, and got kind of pressured into a buddy read. I'm like, okay, I will read it. Maybe it'll surprise me. Secretly, I did hope it would surprise me. It was actually worse than I thought it would be. I did not expect it to frustrate me as much as it did. Truly, I did not. Right off the bat, we get Cell being obnoxious and overprotective and not letting Bree make her own choices, which I don't like that. This is supposed to be her story, is what people keep telling me. Why doesn't she get to make her own decisions? Why doesn't she care about herself as much as she cares about these two white boys? So she constantly is concerned about Nick. Where's Nick? We have to find Nick. I hope Nick's doing well. He's constantly on her mind. When he's not on her mind, then it's her constantly worrying about Cell because he's acting out, because he's turning demon. And she's making excuses for him. One scene felt like a direct jab to The Haters by Tracy Deonn. And that was like, the girls were like, well, how are you so close to Cell now? Because, you know, he tried to kill you a bunch of times. And she basically was like, well, it's okay because I lied, so. And I'm like, no. We're not going to erase that Cell tried to kill her. Like, I don't even mind enemy to lovers to an extent in fantasy, but put in the work. The work was not put in here. Like, basically, he goes from trying to kill her multiple times to Bree just accepting him, which was the same problem that I had in Children of Blood and Bone 2. So I'm like being consistent with it. Like, one of my friends wrote a fantasy that was enemies to lovers, but after like they tried to kill each other, they had to go on a journey and really put in the work to become solid friends before they took it to a romantic level. The work is not here for me to easily forgive Cell, but I feel like the book is saying, well, Bree forgave him, so you can too. No. So I feel like if you are a Bree Cell fan, you're going to love this book because romance, 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 romance between them. Lots of pining, broody moments for. The fan base says this book is not about the romance, but the romance eats up a lot of the plot. And there's so many different threads throughout that Tracy kind of puts together that feel lost because they aren't fully explored. And it's not that there wasn't page space to fully explore them. There was, but we always had to cycle back to Bree and Cell pining for each other. And Bree was cheating on Nick. Like, the book doesn't like to really address it. They kind of sidestepped around it, but no, Bree is a cheater. She went from emotional cheating to physically cheating. Either one of them is cheating, which is not okay. And then, like, another thing I had an issue with is such a big deal was made in book 1 about this book being set at UNC. And it being set at UNC was actually used to justify by people, like, the lack of black people in the book. Even though this is, again, a fantasy, not real life. In fantasy, you can make it whatever you want to be, but also UNC has black people on campus. I had this discussion with Deja, who is one of my friends, and she lives in North Carolina and she's visited UNC, and I'm like, yes, I know they don't have as many black people there as your school, but there are still black people. They still have black groups on campus. They still have a black community. You talk to people from that school and they will tell you, like, black people are there despite the white presence. So that never really gets felt here. I know, like, a lot of the root crafters are said to be in hiding because the Merlins are out here searching for them. It would have still been interesting to see, like, an underground, like, group of blood crafters from the campus actually link up with Bree, but then that never happened. She does eventually meet a group of blood crafters. It's mostly like older aunties, and it just feels like she's coming in to use them to help her out, and that's it. You never see Bree make strong connections to other black people here. When she meets another black person within the Legendborn Society, you still don't get those strong connections. That person is just to help her along the way, and then we never hear of that person again. Mariah does come back, but even that doesn't feel really strong. Mariah comes back, helps her find a safe place to stay, braids her hair, which, oh my gosh. It's very weird how hair is mentioned here over and over and over and over again. It's like a marker of blackness is slavery, racism, and natural hair. Those are the 3 markers of blackness in this book. And it got so annoying because I feel like y'all really hyped Tracy Deonn up with that one hair washing scene in Legendborn. So we had to relive Bree constantly talking about her hair over and over again. Bree gets captured by the Regent. She finally gets a safe place. Then we have her sitting around talking about her hair. She's like, well, and how she didn't get to sleep on a silk pillowcase for days. So she has to do something with her hair. When Mariah sits down, she's like, Like, she's like, finally, I've been waiting to get into this hair. And then she's like, I'm gonna give you a practical style. She does not even give her a practical style. She gives her like this updo with curls and flat twists, which is not practical for being on the run. Like, a more practical style would have been to cornrow that shit back in a way too that it's off of her neck and let her be that way. But no, we have to give her like this fancy updo so she can still look cute for sale. And no, like every time we mention hair here, it almost felt like a reminder to remind you that Brie is a black girl, as if our blackness is defined by our hair alone. And also, Tracy Dan's not the first person to mention hair in a book. Even in a YA book, like when I was a teen, we were inching into that second wave of the natural hair movement, so a lot of authors were mentioning hair, but even then, it wasn't as heavily a big deal as it felt in this book. Because at the end of the day, hair is just one part of you. When I was relaxed and I had issues with like how my hair looked, even then, like I would style my hair and for the most part forget about it. Like, it just constantly kept coming back to Brie's hair unnecessarily. And I'm like, we wouldn't have to do that if we gave her a real black community. So when I say that the book was constantly like using hair, racism, and ancestry as the marker of blackness, ancestry, it was a big theme here. Huge theme. It could have been done better. For one, we have UNC as a school setting. One way to actually utilize the school would have been to have Brie take a course in African American history, or take a course in African diaspora spirituality, and find a way to tie that back into the plot. We didn't get that. That would have been something really cool, and it would have gave the school meaning, because outside of that, there was really no reason for it to be set at this school. In Brie focuses so much on ancestors because she didn't get to know the ancestors on her mom's side because of this curse. That doesn't stop her from knowing the ancestors on her dad's side or knowing anything about her dad's family, so that they didn't even get a mention. But Brie doesn't get to know her ancestors, even though she has the perfect opportunity to actually get to know them because she has a direct connection to them. Instead, the only time she reaches out to them, she wants them to help her learn how to do root. None of them actually really know how to do root, so therefore nobody can help her use root to defend herself, and she gets upset. And then later on, she ends up denouncing them, which was fucked up. Like, what is the point of you telling us this book is about ancestry, emphasizing the importance of the ancestors, and then Vera is basically reduced down to her slave rape constantly? Majority of the time when her name was brought up, it was followed by, and this monster raped her. Over and over and over again. That was her whole character. And yes, she's not living like we did in a modern day where there's a lot more freedom and she could have had all these closing dreams, but we don't hear anything about her aside of that. Like, so it felt very much like how we're often taught about Black history, which actually turns a lot of like other Black people off of the history because they feel like it was just suffering throughout. Despite the suffering, these were still real people with real feelings. And I have seen authors write like historical type stories and give these characters who lived during times of slavery real agency. That was not done here. So that bothered me a lot. There is an underground railroad and a reclaiming of a plantation. I do not mind reclaiming of a plantation. I actually am definitely for that. And whenever that discussion comes up, I do mention it. I am so for like the descendants of Black enslaved people to go ahead and reclaim the plantation lands and do what they want on it. Whether they want to create businesses on it, whether they want to just create a community for their family to live on it, I am all here for it. So I actually liked that these people did that with the plantation and made it a safe space for Black people. The problem that I had was we are inviting non-Black people onto the plantation and basically giving them a pass because Bree gave them a pass. I am so sick of YA doing this, where they invite white people or other non-black people into a black circle and a black safe space, and other black people are just supposed to accept them because so and so likes them. Just because you like them doesn't mean other people have to like them or trust them. And it's almost like giving out an invitation to the cookout. So that pissed me off. At one point we get this little scene where Bree sits down to have Alice braid her hair, and we're supposed to find that cute, and it was like, no ma'am. Because I had an issue with that too, especially when we think about how many of these conversations we've been having lately with K-pop and cultural appropriation, how we've been having conversations about black hair and how Asian people are very dominant in the industry, especially with running the beauty shops, but then they don't treat us with any type of respect. So that felt kind of tone deaf to me because of the conversations that we are actually having. And again, if you wanted to have her be braiding her hair, if you wanted to have her basically experiencing as an extension of the racism Bree's experiencing, which is anti-blackness is still different from anti-Asian racism. Like, they were feeling the same here. Just make the girl black. Like, it would have made more sense for Bree to have a black friend. And I'm saying that as somebody who, one of my best friends, actually two of my best friends are not black, and that's okay. Like, I have my black friends and I have my non-black friends, and we have things about each other we understand, and then things about each other that we will never be able to experience because we don't have that lived experience. But there was just so much that I thought this book could do. I was really hoping that this book would end up being fun. Now that we are situated in the society, now that Bree has not overcome her grief, but like, it's gotten a little bit better. But no, there's no joy in this book. Like, we don't even have soft moments of joy, which are much needed to buffer like the sadness and struggle and pain here. And I think that's what a lot of books miss. That's why I had a problem with Blood Zion 2. It was just like constant pain, constant struggle, constant trauma. And you get these fight scenes and the action is not even good because the MC is so up in her own head. Bree was very up in her own head. Like, the action scenes in fantasy are very hard in general. A lot of people don't do them well. But it was like every action scene kind of played out the same. Like, Bree doesn't know what she's doing with her root craft. She unleashes a bunch of magic that signals other people that there's somebody very powerful nearby, because she doesn't know how to use her powers correctly. We don't get to see like a lot of what's going on outside of it. I think for this type of story it would actually have helped if we had more than one POV, even though I can't stand Sal and I can't stand Nick. Just because then we would have gotten to see something else. I feel like there were a lot of things that could have been done here but weren't done here. I feel like Tracy created plots she didn't know how to follow up on, like with the whole finding Nick thing to begin with. They were supposed to be on this road trip to find Nick. They couldn't actually ever go to find Nick because then the story would have ended, because there was no action plan for how to find Nick and then move past it. And we needed to drag stuff out for book 3. So I'll be getting off this train at this stop. I'm good with the Legendborn cycle. My goal is to continue to discover more black fantasies, and actually I want to bring you guys a recommendation video in the future of black fantasies that I've read and enjoyed that are not Legendborn, but also not the ones that everybody talks about all the time, because I feel like we talk about the same ones so often. So let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk with you guys soon. Bye!